What's up, everybody? We are back with episode 10 of our Site B Mode series. And if you guys have been following the community posts, if you guys follow the Site B Instagram page, you guys will know that I talked about how in today's episode would be a little bit special. Not that every episode isn't special, but today's episode is going to be a little bit different because, as I explained many times before, I've been working with the company of InGen for a couple of years now, and what we do, Site B is a natural reserve where the animals could breed and repopulate and interact with each other on their own. But Site B is not like it was in the early to late 90s and early 2000s. When Dr. Alan Grant and Dr. Ian Malcolm came to the island, InGen as a company didn't repopulate animals that fell into extinction. Of course, they did their own cloning during that time, way before I started working here, but they didn't repopulate animals. So, with all of that being said, um, we have to have these cloning, or I guess you can say breeding research facilities set up in order to make sure that our ecosystems that we're constantly adding to and repopulating, we have to make sure they stay intact. So yes, we let those animals breed on their own out in the wild on Isla Sorna, but we also have to do our own breeding, do our own repopulating, and our own cloning, and that's what's going to be going on. That's what's going to be going on in today's episode. So I want to show you guys and talk a little bit about the cloning process and how we keep Isla Sorna's ecosystems intact. So this is our little base of operations we have here. You'll see a lot of our engine logo on a lot of our Jeeps and trucks and stuff like that. You'll see a lot of our where are they? A lot of our cages and stuff like that, what we use to transport animals in between islands. And the reason why I say in between islands is because this breeding cloning facility is not set up on Isla Sorna. This is actually another island that we have purchased, and we have to. This is one of our many. This is the only one I'm going to be showing in this episode, but this is one of many breeding facilities that we have set up here on Isla Sorna. And the reason why it's on a separate island is because, of course, we have a lot of variety of flying animals on Isla Sorna, and just a lot of animals in general on Isla Sorna that we don't necessarily want them bothering our breeding facility, especially when we're recloning animals and we're repopulating and adding to the ecosystems. We don't want any animals that are on Isla Sorna to stumble across this facility, of course, because those were some of the mistakes that the old InGen team members made way back in the day, way before I started working here. So anyways, I just want to show our little base of operations before we get started. You see a lot of our transporting trucks, a lot of our tranquilizer trucks, and a lot of our cages and stuff, things we use to transport our dinosaurs in between enclosures and in between islands and stuff. So anyways, we're going to, as I said, talk about how we reclone dinosaurs, how we keep ecosystems intact, how we add to the populations, and the things that we do to make sure Site B stays stays intact, and of course how we make sure the animals on Site B don't fall into extinction. Without further ado, so we're going to go into this little enclosure that we have here. You'll see I guess you can say viewing domes, but they're more so set up to fit into the they're more so set up to fit into the habitats to look a little bit more natural. So this is a log viewing dome, and of course this one is not so natural, but we need these inside these animals enclosure in order to, of course, research them and view them a little bit better. So excuse me. So anyways, what we have here, we have two beautiful female ankylosauruses, and we have a large number of juvenile ankylosauruses as well. I believe there's about 7 or 8 of them. So what you see here is that, not all of these juvenile ankylosauruses are from these two pair of female ankylosauruses. These juvenile ankylosauruses are newly cloned ankylosaurs that we just bred. The thing is that we went and we took two female ankylosauruses out from the wild on Isla Sorna and we brought them here. That's because these newly cloned ankylosauruses obviously need some adult presence, but of course they need to be taught and they need to be raised, of course, and that way when they do get a little bit older and we release them into the wild on Isla Sorna, they don't you know, necessarily know how to go about things as far as being in the wild. And of course, this is an enclosure that we have set up to hold them and house these animals, of course. So, this isn't the wild, but the thing is that we went to Isla Sorna and we took two fully grown female adults off of, Isla Sorna, and we brought them here. That way these juveniles kind of know how things go and stuff like that, and they have two adults to look after, well, mainly two adults to look after them. And so these two female adult ankylosauruses will mainly show these juvenile ankylosauruses the ropes. So as I just mentioned, these ankylosaurs, they are newly cloned ankylosauruses, and it's going to be about a year or two before we add them to the wild on Isla Sorna. But because they're newly cloned, meaning that they don't have any biological parents, we wanted to get we wanted to get two female adult ankylosauruses to kind of show them the ropes. So you'll kind of see that a lot here at this breeding facility, where we'll have, I guess you can say, newly cloned animals that don't have any biological parents. A biological parent would mean that those, biological adult species gave birth to those juvenile species, but that's not the case with some of these animals here in our breeding cloning facility. Sometimes we'll clone a variety of new animals, but we might need some adult parents to kind of show them the ropes. So in this little enclosure, this is our Triceratops enclosure, I believe. So things are a little bit different here. So sometimes out in the wild on Isla Sorna, breeding sometimes causes more harm than good. So of course, breeding means that, it's going to give life to animals. But for example, our Triceratops, our male Triceratops can get extremely, extremely territorial and aggressive out in the wild. And sometimes they could kill each other. I can't tell you guys how many times I've been on the mainlands of Isla Sorna, and I've seen dead, dead animals all over the place just from breeding alone. So what we have here, we have two fully grown adult Triceratops, and we have a large number of females for them to breed with as well. And as you can see, we also have some juveniles in the area as well. So these juveniles are not from any of these fully grown Triceratops. They are newly cloned Triceratops that we have. And of course, why not throw them in an enclosure with already grown or already fully mature adult Triceratops, so that they can learn and stuff like that. And that way these adults can look after them in a way. But yeah, so basically you guys will see that a lot too. So sometimes it'll be an enclosure set up in our breeding facility where we'll have maybe one or two males and maybe 6 or 5 females. That way these two dominant males don't have to worry about, this is one of the males right here. Let me try to find the other one. Here he is. That way they don't have to worry about fighting each other, because there's plenty females to go around as far as breeding goes. And as I said, these juvenile Triceratops that you guys see, don't mind the rain, it shouldn't be raining that long. But these juvenile Triceratops that you guys see, they are newly cloned trikes that we already cloned a little while ago, and of course we added them into this enclosure with the other fully grown mature trikes. So anyways, let's go explore another enclosure and see what we have. Of course, we have a bird cage set up right here, but not every enclosure that we have in this breeding facility has animals in it. This enclosure is empty right now. We might go out to the mainlands of Isla Sorna to go get some pteranodons or dimorphodons. Of course, we'll get maybe 1 or 2 males and maybe 5 or 6 females. As I just mentioned, we always want to have more females than males. That way, the males aren't constantly fighting and killing each other. And that's pretty much the whole point of this breeding facility. We want to make sure our ecosystems on Isla Sorna stay well intact. This is another empty enclosure we have here. We haven't decided what we're going to add here, as far as maybe going out to the mainlands of Isla Sorna to maybe grab some individual species or maybe clone something here, at this breeding facility to add. So anyways, right here we have some stegosauruses. Now, stegosauruses, just like the trikes, they are another species of dinosaur that, constantly cause way more harm than good on Isla Sorna, especially when it's time to breed. So I believe we have two males. See if I can find the 2 males right quick. This is one of them right here. You can tell because his skin pattern is a little bit more rigid compared to the female. And let's see if we can find another one. These are our females right here. It's a male. I mean a female. Where is our other male? He's somewhere around here. Here he is. So yeah, just like our trikes, they cause more harm than good when it's time to breed. So we have to house them with a large number of females. You know, only 2 males is pretty good, and I guess you can say like 5 or 6 females is good. That way they have a large number of females to breed from, and they don't got to worry about, of course, killing each other when it's time to breed. You know, our clone animals can become very territorial and hostile when it's time to breed. You know, just like nature out in the mainlands and other parts of the world with other animals and stuff like that. So our clone animals, of course, share the DNA of a lot of other animals that we have, you know, in other parts of the world. So of course they're going to share a lot of those characteristics. You know, it's only right that it goes into their genetics because of course we're using animal DNA when we're cloning our dinosaurs here. So of course you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys heard this Rex roar a few times. So right here we have a female Tyrannosaurus Rex, and we took her off the mainlands of Isa Sorna. And the reason why we took her is because we have about 8 juvenile Rexes here. So these juvenile Rexes that we have here are not from the mainlands of Isa Sorna. They weren't, of course, bred on Isa Sorna. They were cloned here. So that means that, you know, going back to what I said earlier, these are newly cloned Rexes. We're always looking to add newly cloned animals to the populations on Isa Sorna. And these are newly cloned animals. I mean, these are newly cloned Rexes that, of course, within the next 1 or 2 years will be getting added to the ecosystems on Isa Sorna. So we have a beautiful, fully grown adult female Tyrannosaurus Rex here. And of course, she will be their mother in the sense that they will learn from her in terms of how to hunt. We have a bunch of goat feeders around. Here's a goat right here. They will learn how to look after themselves, of course. And as I said, they are newly cloned Rexes. There's about 8 of them, a couple of females and a couple of males. And eventually, when they get old enough, we will be moving them, you know, to the mainlands of Isa Sorna. But as of right now, they're going to be housed here for about 1 or 2 years. And of course, we have that female. She's not going to be with them the entire time. And of course, she knows that these aren't her biological children. And she's never bred before. But the way we clone our animals, especially our female animals, they all have that motherly instinct. So even if she was to get agitated with them, you know, she might show her teeth a little bit, just like wolves do in the wild. You know, when you have a pack of wolves, sometimes the adult wolves, they will, you know, show their teeth to the wolf pups in order to let them know that they don't necessarily feel like being bothered. So you kind of see her a little ways away from the juveniles, and that's mainly because she don't mind having her own space, but at the same time, she don't mind, you know, the presence of these juveniles, because she understands, you know, the way we clone these Rexes, our female Rexes, of course, they're all cloned with that motherly instinct, so she understands that, you know, these are juvenile Rexes, and they won't do her any harm. So as I said, we have about 8 of these Tyrannosaurs, and of course, once they get older, you know, a certain age, we'll be moving them into the wild. And the reason why we are constantly cloning at these breeding facilities is because, as I mentioned numerous times already, we have to make sure that our ecosystems on Site B stay intact. You know, as I said a little bit earlier, back in the day, Isla Sorna, you know, in the early to late 90s and the early 2000s, Isla Sorna, of course, was home to a large variety of animals. But, you know, back then, there weren't anybody on Isla Sorna to make sure these ecosystems stayed intact. And because of that, a lot of animals went extinct back in the day. You know, Edmontosaurus is one of them, and you guys have heard me mention many times, I'm always excited to come across Edmontosauruses because it was an animal that quickly went extinct when InGen had to abandon Isla Sorna way back in the day. So anyways, let's check out our next little enclosure. Let's see, what do we have here? We have... Okay, so this is our Spinosaurid enclosure. So as you guys know, our Baryonyxus and our Suchomimesis are able to cohabitate with each other out in the wild on Isla Sorna. So that is what we have here, but we also have some irritators in this enclosure as well. And as you guys know, irritators are one of the animals that we just recently released onto Isla Sorna. So with that being said, Where are they? There should be some irritators in this enclosure. We have one female adult baryonyx, one female adult suchomimus, and one female adult irritator. Excuse me. And we have a large number of juvenile baryonyxes, which you see running right here. Here's a juvenile irritator walking alongside this adult suchomimus, and we have some juvenile suchomimuses as well. Here they are. So the juveniles are all newly cloned animals. They weren't genetically bred, meaning that they don't have any biological parents. So that is why we went to the mainlands of Isla Sorna to go get one adult female Suchomimus, one adult female Irritator, and one adult female Baryonyx. That way these juveniles have all of these, adult animals to learn from, of course. So right here we have our adult Irritator, and of course you guys know how happy I was to add irritators to our semi-aquatic ecosystems on the mainlands of Isla Sorna. So yes, this is our Spinosaurid enclosure. See a couple of baryonyxes running around. Of course, they're gonna follow this adult female baryonyx around, and that's the cool thing about our semi-aquatic ecosystems and our Spinosaurids. They don't mind sharing territories with each other. Of course, fish life, aquatic life is plentiful here on Isla Sorna. So, with that being said, they don't necessarily have to worry about fighting each other when they're, sharing territories with each other. And the reason why you guys see, you guys are seeing these juveniles, but you're only really seeing female adults with these juveniles, that is because our male adult animals are usually more territory. And if, for example, we have a female adult baryonyx here, if we was to have a male baryonyx, a male adult baryonyx, he would probably try to kill these juveniles in order to mate with the female. So that is why you'll see a lot more females compared to males. Anyways, let's see what we have over here. So we have our Edmontosaurus enclosure. So of course we were just talking about Edmontosaurus a few minutes ago. In this enclosure we have a large number of newly cloned juvenile Edmontosauruses. Edmontosauruses, unfortunately, are an animal that is, fortunately they are an animal that is usually all over the mainlands of Isla Sorna. But with that being said, they are usually an animal that gets hunted down a lot. So that is why we are always actively breeding Edmontosauruses. So in this enclosure we have two adult females. Here's the other adult female, and then we have like I said, we have a large number of juvenile Edmontosauruses. I believe about 8 or 9 of them. And of course, with all our juveniles here, we're going to house them in their enclosures for a little while with the adult animals that they share these enclosures with. That way they can learn from them and stuff like that. And then of course, once they get about 1.5 to 2 years of age, we'll release them into the mainland and the wild of Isla Sorna. And of course, you guys know our clone animals, they don't take a long time to grow. Like, they reach maturity at about 1 to 2 years of age. I would say 1.5 to 2 years. So anyways, what is the next enclosure that we have here? Okay, so this is a pretty interesting enclosure that we have. So we have newly cloned Deinocheirus. So as you guys know, Deinocheirus was an animal that we just released into the ecosystems of Isla Sorna about 2 episodes ago as of this episode. And there aren't any adult Deinocheiruses in this enclosure. And you'll see that sometimes with these breeding facilities. Sometimes we'll have an adult from them to learn from and share their enclosures with. Sometimes we'll just put all of the newly cloned animals in one enclosure, and then we'll watch them grow up from there. So this is about, I believe, 10 or 12 Deinocheiruses, and of course they're only going to add to the ecosystems and the population of Deinocheiruses out in the wild once we release them. So as I mentioned, we'll house them for about 1 to 2 years, and then of course after that we'll release them into the wild. And as I said, guys, this is one of many breeding facilities that we have set up. Sometimes we purchase islands that are closer to Isla Sorna. That way, we're able to set these breeding facilities up, and we don't have to worry about constructing these breeding facilities on the mainlands of Isla Sorna. Despite Isla Sorna being such a huge island, we kind of want that island to just be a natural reserve, a natural ecosystem habitat reserve. We don't want to do too much building on those islands because we don't want to make the same mistakes that the older InGen members made as far as constructing things too close to wildlife, and then of course, wildlife interacting with the things that they constructed, and you guys kind of know what happens from there as far as animals breaking out and stuff like that. So yes, we have a large number of Dinochirises in this area, and as I just mentioned, no adults. These guys are doing well as far as learning from each other, interacting with each other, and our Dinochirises are extremely social. So we're super excited to, of course, add these guys to the mainlands of Isla Sorna once these guys fully mature. So anyways, we're about almost done. After I show this breeding facility off, we're going to go explore a little proximity. We're going to actually go to Isla Sorna and explore a little proximity and go back to our usual format as far as scoping out the area, of course. So we're going to see what we have here. We have a couple. Oh, this is our Stegosaurus enclosure. We have a couple of more enclosures. So here we have a Carnotaurus enclosure. So this is one of those enclosures where there aren't any juveniles, but we have two males. I mean, we have one male. So this is our male right here. And as you can see, he's getting ready to interact with our female. We have two females in this enclosure with him, and that is because we want him to be able to breed with these two females. And then, of course, after that, um, we're gonna send these two females back to the wild after he breed with them. Of course, we're gonna send him back too, but I don't know if I talked about that. I kind of showed off those trikes earlier, that those two male trikes and those two male stegosauruses that are sharing their enclosure with a large number of females. But of course, after those trikes and those stegosauruses and these carnotauruses breed, we're going to send them back um, to the wild, of course. So yeah, after he breeds with these two females, we're going to send them back to the wild. And I believe we do have another enclosure somewhere. What is this that we have? Okay, this is our Spinosaurid enclosure. Oh yes, so this is another one of our bird cages. The other bird cage that we had was pretty vacant. Well, of course it was vacant, didn't have anything in it. Um, so this bird cage is housing our Thanatos Dracons. We have two Thanatos Dracons. If you guys have only seen Thanatos Dracons in 2 episodes in the 10 episodes of our Site B mode series, I guess technically 3 now if you count this episode. But we have two Thanatos Dracons and a couple of females, and of course, same thing with our Carnotauruses. After they breed, we're going to release them back into the wild. We just want to make sure that these males breed with these females, and from there, we're going to release them all back into the wild, and our females go back into the wild, and of course, they will already be pregnant. That way, we don't have to worry about our males killing each other in order to breed with our females. So, we have natural fish feeders set up for these guys. This is a female right here. And these females might actually already be pregnant. I might have to ask my other InGen team members if, the breeding with these guys already took place. But here's our two males right here. As you can see, both of them are asleep. And because of how calm they are, I will assume that they already have bred with the females. And I try to usually be here when these breedings take place, but I might have already missed it, unfortunately. So yes, this is our Thanatos Dracons and our Thanatos Draken enclosure. We have another enclosure set up over here. So this is our Brachiosaurus enclosure. Brachiosauruses could be here for the time being, but it don't mean that they will always be here. So we have a couple of juvenile Brachiosauruses, and of course we have one large female that we went and we got from Isla Sorna. So none of these juveniles came from Isla Sorna, meaning, again, as I explained earlier, they weren't bred on Isla Sorna. They are newly cloned Brachiosauruses that we will be adding to the ecosystems of Isosorna once they, of course, fully mature. And of course, like the rest of our animals that have juveniles with them, of course, like the rest of our juveniles, they also share this enclosure with a female that we got from the mainlands. And of course, she will show them how to live and how to act, of course. And yes, they will learn from her. It's very important that some of our animals have that adult presence. That way, of course, they're able to learn and stuff. So I also have. Well, we're gonna actually wait. I'm gonna wait until we show most of our enclosures here before I talk about that. So we have two more enclosures over here. Just want to speed our camera up a little bit. So we have a combined enclosure. Of course, it's separated by. It's yes, yeah, separated by a fence in the middle. But we also have newly cloned Utah Raptors. So as you guys know, Utah Raptors were on that new 2025 InGen list that I talked about almost a month ago, and we have about 10 of these guys. They aren't sharing their enclosure with any adults. So of course we're going to be housing them for about 1 to 2 years before we release them into the wilds of Isosorna. Our raptors, any of our dromaeosaurs on that we cloned, of course, like their fossilized relatives or fossilized ancestors, they are very, very social, and they usually stay in large groups, of course, and they do good. They do good in large numbers. So that is why we have a large number of these guys. And of course, I said this is a two-part enclosure separated by a fence. So on the other side, we have newly cloned Austroraptors as well, and there aren't any adults in the area. Forgive me if you guys hear any static in the background. Sometimes our audio picks up a little bit of static. But anyways, Austroraptors, of course, were just recently released into the wild of Isosorna about 2 episodes ago as well as of this episode. So we have a couple of them. I believe it might be 7 or 8 of them. And as I mentioned, there aren't any adults in the area. So of course we will monitor them, make sure they're healthy. We have a paleo vet set up at this research facility. That way we are able to monitor all of our adults and all of our juveniles as well to make sure that they're pretty healthy. You know, adults that we go and we take from Isosorna to bring here to breed. And it's, as I mentioned, it's not that we do that with all of our adults. You know, breeding on the mainlands of Isosorna takes place daily. But it's just that some animals on Isosorna cause more harm than good when it's time to breed. So sometimes we'll take them off the island, bring them here to breed, and send the females back already pregnant. So, and as I was mentioning with our paleo vet, we're always making sure that the health of our animals is up to par when they're breeding. So anyways, we have one more special thing to show off. Well, we have one more enclosure, but I want to show off that special thing right here right quick. Oh wait, this is another empty enclosure right here. So as I mentioned, some of these empty enclosures will house animals pretty soon, whether it be we go and we take animals off of Isosorna, or whether it be we go and we clone some new animals to add here. So yes, we have one more. Well, we have one special enclosure to show off, and then after that, we have another enclosure to show off. So right here is a newly cloned animal that nobody has seen yet. It was not on the original. It was not on the new 2025 InGen list, and it wasn't a part of the cut animals that we recently released into the wild, which was of course Irritator, Dinocyrus, and Austroraptor about 2 episodes ago. As I mentioned to you guys before, we're always looking to clone new animals. That's something that we're always doing as long as, you know, the DNA for those animals is close to 100%. We always try to get it to 100%. So I believe we have about 8 or 9 Albertosauruses. So as you guys know, Albertosaurus is a relative of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. You know, we just, on our new 2025 InGen list, we cloned Utyrannus, which is of course a clone, which is of course is a relative of Tyrannosaurus Rex. So we have a new clone, a new relative of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and of course these guys aren't nowhere near fully mature, so they're going to be here for about 1 to 2 years. But as I mentioned, though these episodes come out week by week, you know, that don't mean that as far as the timeline of these episodes are on a week by week basis. So though it will be a while until you see fully mature Albertosauruses out in the wild on Isla Sorna, it shouldn't take too long because these episodes are already pre-recorded. So yes, that is the exciting thing about this breeding research facility. Yes, it houses a large variety of species that you guys have already seen on the mainlands of Isla Sorna, but it also houses a newly cloned animal, which is Albertosaurus, and we've been at hard work in terms of trying to get the DNA to Albertosaurus to 100%. So of course we have a little cave set up for these guys so they can chill and relax, and of course we have a couple of carnivore feeders for them to feed on. Um, and these guys are very social. I don't know, because we don't have any fully grown um Albertosauruses out in the wild on Isla Sorna. I don't know how social these animals will be once they fully mature, but of course we are really looking forward to seeing that. So anyways, our last little enclosure we have at this breeding facility is on the beaches of this island, and as I mentioned to you guys already, um this island of course is not Isla Sorna. So yes, as I just said, our last little enclosure is a Spinosaur enclosure, a Spinosaurus enclosure to be exact. um so the reason why they're not on the mainland, the reason why they're not, of course, you know, well, I guess you can say mainland of this island where the rest of our animals are at, is because some of our Spinosauruses like to stay, well, kind of like to set up their territory in beachy areas. So we have an adult. Where is he? Here he is. So we have an adult male. So this is a rare example of, sometimes we'll have maybe a male animal that kind of, does a lot better in terms of looking after his young compared to the females. So we've been observing our adult Spinosauruses on the mainlands of Isla Sorna, and we found that our males are way more, I guess you can say, tolerant of their young and of juveniles just in general. It doesn't even have to be their biological, offspring. So we have this male here, and of course, none of these juvenile Spinosauruses are his biological offspring. All of these juvenile Spinosauruses are newly cloned Spinosauruses that we recently just cloned not too long ago. And of course, when we took this male off the mainlands of Isla Sorna to, of course, look after these guys and show them the ropes. And of course, we have this beach area set off. We have this beach area closed off. That way, the male would do just fine in terms of swimming in the oceans. But it's the juveniles that we're mainly worried about. We don't want them. They're not ready for that. So that is why, we have this enclosure set up for them. So of course they can kind of get that feeling of what it feels like to kind of live alongside the beaches, because of course they'll have that opportunity and they'll have that choice. Once they get moved to the mainlands of Isla Sorna, they'll have that choice to decide if they want to move on the beaches and of course swim from proximity to proximity. But of course we want them to kind of know what that feels like. So yes, as I just mentioned, all of these are newly cloned Spinosauruses, and the big male here is a Spinosaurus that we went and we took off the mainlands of Isla Sorna for him to look after these guys. So anyways, guys, that was our breeding facility, our breeding slash cloning facility that we have set up here on Isla Sorna. I was really happy to show you guys this because I wanted to kind of share with you guys the cloning and breeding process that we have set up here. Lots of times we do let these animals breed on their own out in the wild, but in order for us to make sure these ecosystems stay intact, we have to sometimes go and get individual animals to make sure that they breed on their own and then send them back to Isla Sorna already pregnant. And of course we do a lot of cloning here, so sometimes we'll clone a large number of new animals that don't have any biological parents yet, and then of course we'll have to go get fully grown adult animals to those juveniles, so of course that they can have that adult presence with them. So anyways, guys, that was our breeding facility. We're going to spend the last couple of minutes actually on the mainlands of Isla Sorna and check out a proximity right quick. So I'll see you guys in a few seconds. All right, everybody, we are back on the mainlands of Isla Sorna after we just left the island that is housing our research. Well, I guess you can say our breeding and cloning research facility. So, we're actually back in the proximity on Isla Sorna, the same proximity that housed the Spinosaurus that we named Loner. And if you guys remember from the last episode, well, if you guys remember from episodes back, we talked about how Loner was the first Spinosaurus to be cloned using the DNA of the original Spinosaurus from the early 2000s. And of course, he earned the name Loner because unlike his Spinosaurus family members, you know, as you guys seen with other Spinosauruses in this series, they are more social, where he has actually chose to seclude himself and seek out his own territories. So keep in mind, this is the first Spinosaurus, well, technically the second Spinosaurus to reside on Isla Sorna after the original Spinosaurus from the early 2000s. So we have our footage pause here. We're actually going to play our footage because something interesting could possibly be taking place. So we actually have a Tyrannosaurus Rex that is in the same location as Loner. And as you guys remember from what I'm saying, from what I said prior, Loner is a very highly aggressive Spinosaurus. And as you can see right off the bat, he just cracked or actually broke the neck of this Tyrannosaurus. So this fight actually did not last long, guys. It is a reason why we picked up our footage right in this proximity where Loner was. We've been keeping tabs on Loner as we always do with most of our animals, and I thought that this fight actually would have been a bit longer. This whole entire territory actually belongs to Loner. He's a little bit a ways away from the lake that he usually resides in, but it's not often where we have other large carnivores that venture into the same territory as Loner. And as you guys can see, just like that, he immediately broke the neck of large Tyrannosaurus Rex. That was actually a subadult Tyrannosaur, but our subadult animals are most of the time usually the same size as our adult animals. As you guys know, our clone animals grow at a very rapid pace. So that is the first fight between two large carnivores that you guys have seen in the series, and that is the first fight between the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Spinosaurus that you guys have seen. And it's actually the first fight between the Rex and the Spinosaurus that I've seen in a while. And as you guys know, I've been working with the company of InGen for the last couple of years, so these fights don't usually take place that much, for the simple fact that Isla Sorna is such a large island that these animals are able to stay widely spread out and choose their own territories to reside in. So as I just mentioned, this is Loner's territory. We've seen it before a couple episodes back when we released Eutyrannus, Muttoborosaurus, and Sauropelta off the new 2025 InGen list. As you can see, he shares it with a variety of species. We have Triceratops in the area. I do believe there's some Centaursauruses in the area as well, and there might be some Stygimolochs in the area. We usually scope out the areas before we start recording, just to make sure we're recording and doing the episodes in a good area. But as you guys can see, our Spinosauruses are extremely aggressive when needed to be. You know, they spend most of their time in the water and stuff like that, but if they have to come on land to deal with anything that might be in their territory, they won't waste any time. And it doesn't mean that our Rexes are pushovers. It's just that our Spinosauruses have a lot more going for themselves as far as, you know, longer arms, and they're able to grip the necks of their opponents. And of course, our Spinosauruses also have longer, narrow jaws. You know, he would have been in a lot more trouble had the Tyrannosaurus Rex had gripped him first, because of course, the Rexes has the strongest or most powerful bite force out of any animal that we've cloned, and just any animal in general in the fossil record. But unfortunately, that subadult Rex stumbled in the wrong area. So I'm going to spend our last couple minutes in this little area. Obviously, the main focus of this episode was to show off our breeding and cloning facility. As I mentioned, we probably wouldn't even have started directly in this area, but we spotted a Rex in Loner's territory. And it's not the first time that he's been seen to be aggressive towards other animals. It's just the first time that, Rex has stumbled in this territory. That might have been the first Rex that he's ever had to fend off. And as you can see, he's probably about to feed on the carcass. Um, so yeah, we're going to see what else is in this proximity for these last couple minutes, and just, of course, explore this proximity. And as I just said, see what else is in it. Of course, we have some Centaursauruses and those trikes that we've seen earlier. You guys will see some incubation labs set up, because as I mentioned, this is the same exact proximity that we released Muttaburrasaurus, Sauropelta, and Eutyrannus in a couple episodes back off of the new 2025 InGen list. And as you can see, we have a Muttaburrasaurus right here. So I can assume that there's probably more Muttaburrasauruses in the area. And as you guys know, Muttaburrasaurus is actually in the last episode of our Site BMO series, and they are actively breeding out in the wild, which of course is very, very good. We're always happy to see our animals breeding and repopulating. And even if they aren't, as you guys just seen earlier in the episode, we have numerous facilities set up for that main purpose. If our animals aren't doing too good as far as breeding, then of course we'll go out of our way to go take those animals off Isla Sorna, take them to our breeding islands, let them breed on their own, and then of course bring the pregnant females back here to the mainlands of Isla Sorna. So we also have some Triceratops in the area. We showed off some of these family of trikes when we visited this proximity of Isla Sorna a couple episodes back. So we're going to see if anything else. Usually when we revisit certain proximities, which we don't do a lot, but when we revisit certain proximities, I'm always interested to see if anything else has ventured into the area. Okay, so we actually have some irritators. So this is a juvenile irritator. It's actually a large family of irritators. Irritators actually weren't in the last episode. I don't know if you guys remember, but we spent a large amount of time actually looking for them, because the proximity on Isla Sorna that we were at last episode, it housed a variety, the river streams housed a variety of, a large number of Baryonyxus and Suchomimuses, but irritators haven't, of course, migrated to that area of Isla Sorna yet. So I'm happy to see that they have migrated to this area, and of course we're going to see if our Eutyrannus are actually still in this area, because this is the same proximity as I just mentioned that we released our Eutyrannus in. And as you guys can see, our irritators, I just forgot to mention, our irritators are already repopulating. So as you can see, this is a juvenile irritator right here. This is a female. And here's another juvenile irritator right here. This is a male. So as I just mentioned, I'm always happy to see our animals repopulating, of course, because that means that they are doing, well, I'm not going to say it necessarily means they're doing good out in the wild. It just means that they are doing good as far as repopulating. And of course, we hope that they continue to do good. So further upstream here, we have a couple of more irritators. And I feel like a couple seconds ago, I might have mistakenly called these guys Suchomimuses. So if I did, just know that I meant irritator. So we have another juvenile irritator. And what do we have here? A female irritator, female adult. And let's see if this is her mate here. This might be a fully grown male. So yes, this is a fully grown male here. So this might actually be a mated pair. And they are with that other group of irritators that are further downstream. They just probably chose to just swim a little bit more upstream to check out more of their territory. Juveniles, like, guys, this is my first time seeing these juvenile irritators, and they are absolutely adorable, beautiful animals. I'm so happy that these guys, of course, are breeding on their own. And as you guys seen earlier in the episode, we actually do have some irritators in our breeding cloning facility. Newly cloned irritators, just in case they weren't already doing good out here in the wild. So we're going to see what else we have in this area. I do believe that is a Centausaurus. And as I just mentioned, guys, we already spent about 35 minutes showing off the breeding and cloning facility, so we're not going to spend too much longer recording here. I just wanted to, of course, end this episode off going back to the mainlands of Isla Sorna. Okay, so we actually have this is a male velociraptor, and we actually have some more Centaursauruses in the area. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's more velociraptors. We're gonna go past these trees to check out this area. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any Tyrannosus because this is the area where we release Tyrannosus, but it don't mean anything. It just means that they possibly migrated to other territories. I'm checking to see if there are any other Spinosauruses. I mean, if there are any other Velociraptors, because we just seen one. And as you guys can see, there's a large number of Centaursauruses in the area. Which obviously is good for the Velociraptors because it gives them a lot of food to feed off of. But I'm not seeing any other Velociraptors. As you guys can know, Velociraptors can be very hard to spot sometimes. We're going to go catch back up with that male that was sleeping here. And as you can see, he's still sleeping. Usually where there's one male, there's females not too far behind. Yes, here we have a female right here that is sleeping. It could actually be a mated pair. Let's see if we have any more in the area. We're just going to scope out the area a little bit more. Before we get ready to wrap this episode up, I just want to be sure that there aren't any Tyrannosus that stayed in this area, because this area is plentiful in terms of, herbivore life. So they definitely will have a lot to feed on. Okay, yes, so we do have some Tyrannosus. We actually have two here. Well, three. So what we have one male, one female. What is this in the background? Well, no, these are all males. So 3 male Tyrannosus here. And the reason why I wanted to check, because this is the area where we released them at. And this is such a nice area for a carnivore to kind of establish its territory in. It houses a variety of herbivores. We haven't came in contact with too many carnivores. And the velociraptors that we've seen, we only seen 2. I'm more than certain that there's more raptors, but we only seen 2. So these guys probably made their way upstream to, of course, expand their territory, but they wouldn't have any problem challenging the raptors for food, of course. So, now I'm happy because we got to see some Tyrannosus. And, of course, it's not all of them, so that can only mean that the others probably expanded their territory and sought out other proximities to reside in here on Isla Sorna. So anyways, we're going to get ready to draw this episode to a close. Of course, this is not the usual format as far as future episodes. The first 35 minutes of this episode was, of course, spent, going over our research and breeding facility. And, of course, going over our cloning and breeding facility, as I really wanted to show that to you guys. And here we have some more velociraptors in the back. Of course, the last couple of minutes of this episode was spent checking out Loner. The reason why we even came to this territory was because we spotted a Tyrannosaurus Rex in his territory. So, of course, we got a chance to see how that played out. So anyways, guys, keep in contact with the series. Stay up to date with the episodes. This was episode 10. We're almost at 80 subs. And I've been talking with a few other subscribers. And as I told them, I will make the announcement in this episode. Once we get to 100 subscribers, let's just put it like this. When we get to 100 subscribers, we have something amazing to reveal to you guys. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I will catch you guys later.